So today we have here an HP zBook laptop, and we're going to be doing an RF demonstration today. And this is a fairly standard laptop by modern standards. It has Wi-Fi capabilities and Bluetooth capabilities as far as wireless communications go. It does not have a built-in Ethernet port, so that's what I mean by modern, so-called modern standards. And here I have an EMF meter, and if we take a look at the readings now, we're not picking anything up. It's less than 1/100th of a milliwatt per square meter, and that is because there are no communications active right now. I don't even have an Ethernet cable plugged into it, so it is completely offline essentially. What we are going to do now is, if we come down to network, we can see that we have the Wi-Fi turned off as airplane mode is on. And I'm going to go and turn off airplane mode, which will turn the Wi-Fi on. And the only reason I have a mouse plugged into this computer, by the way, which I have over here, is I just physically cannot use a trackpad. So I'm just using a mouse so I can click on things here. But of course, you know, this is a wired mouse, so we're not going to pick anything up from it. And I've heard in the past that some trackpads have RF issues as well. If that is the case for some reason, it doesn't appear that this laptop is acceptable to that. Anyways, let's go and turn the Wi-Fi on. So now we can see that we are getting some spikes in. Okay, so there we go. So now it's connected, and it was actually at that instant that it connected to a wireless network here. That's where that big spike came from. So now it's connected. We're not getting super high readings because the computer is not doing anything. I've closed any background applications on here, except for I have a YouTube video open for testing, just because that will continuously use bandwidth. So we can make some measurements while it's doing that. So I've got the video muted just because that's not pertinent to this video. Let me go ahead and play that. So now the video is playing, and let me actually refresh the page because I think it was buffered before. So, and it does seem to be a bit slow at the moment. And let's see, could not connect. And that is because it is not connected to a wireless network actually. So let us go ahead and connect to one here. Okay, so just based on the RF spikes, that looks more like it. So now we can see we are indeed connected to a wireless network. And I'm actually not doing anything with the computer because that page didn't load before. So we're not doing anything, and these are the readings that we're seeing. Pretty high up into the red. Still more than 1,000 times below, well, not anymore, but still well below so-called FCC standards, which are completely useless. But certainly permitted, but certainly still thousands of times above what you would want in a healthy environment. So anything that's red for sure is something to avoid. So this gives you an idea of the background levels, not the background levels, but sort of the baseline levels of just having Wi-Fi enabled on a computer like this. We're not really doing anything, and I've tried to close all the background applications again, made sure that nothing was running on here, and we're still getting levels that are 2, 3, 4 milliwatts per square meter, which is not great. So if we move this around the computer here, oh, okay, so we can see that kind of in the center here, it's actually a lot higher. So 15 milliwatts per square meter. So this is probably where the antenna is my bet. But let's keep moving around here. So as we go back to the edge, we're sort of where we were on the other side, about 1 to 2 milliwatts per square meter. We'll move along the front, and we get even lower levels. So obviously none of this is good, but the thing to keep in mind here is it does appear that the antenna on this computer is in the back. So hopefully that's not where you are. You are in the front. Well, hopefully you're not using any wireless, right? But if you were, you definitely don't want to be near the back of this. So if we move along again, it goes up a little bit because, again, it appears the antenna would be right in the center in the back there. And as we move this direction again, we see that they fall again, almost down to background levels, really. So as we move back towards the back, we see that they increase again, and it's right in the middle again. That levels seem to peak. So 60 milliwatts per square meter, that is outrageous for essentially nothing going on. Yeah, so this is just on idle. If you have Wi-Fi enabled, doing nothing, let me go ahead and disable it again. Okay, so I just disabled it, and it basically all goes away because it's disabled. Let me turn it back on. And so that was just turning it back on. It didn't automatically reconnect to that network, so let me do that now. Okay, so now it's reconnected, and yeah, we again seem to be picking up pretty high levels, like right here in the center. So let me go ahead and play this video now that I had loaded. Okay, so now it's playing a YouTube video. So this is actual usage. Let me start the video. It didn't autoplay. There we go. I've started the video. And let me just seek to something that's definitely not buffered. Okay. So these are the levels we're picking up as it's transmitting a pretty good deal of information over the network. And this is in the front, right by the trackpad. So even this is not great. It's almost 0.2 milliwatts per square meter. According to this meter, that's in the yellow. And according to the science, anything above really 0.01 milliwatts per square meter is not great. So if you were using the trackpad and you had wireless enabled, this would be pretty bad. Even though the antenna is as far away from it as possible, essentially. So you can do better by using a wired mouse, of course. If we look at where the mouse is, it's, you know, 0.5, 0.05, 0.06. But of course you can avoid this completely by just not using any wireless. So we'll trace it up the back here, and again the highest levels are right in the back here. So if I had to put money on it, I would say that's where at least the Wi-Fi transmitter is on this particular unit. So that is a brief look at the Wi-Fi. Now what we can do is go ahead and I'm going to enable the Bluetooth on here. Okay, so here we are in the settings. We can see Wi-Fi is on, NFC is on, and Bluetooth is off. So let's go ahead and turn the Bluetooth on. Okay, so now this Bluetooth assistant down here is started up. And let me click the add a Bluetooth device just to see what that does. Okay, so now it's discoverable, and it's going to transmit with that. The levels on the sides do seem a little bit higher than they were before. So that is that. What I will do now is turn the Wi-Fi off and just leave the Bluetooth and the NFC on, so we can just look at that in isolation. So this is just the Bluetooth. So as we can see, the Wi-Fi is turned off. And these are the readings that there's no Bluetooth device paired or connected to this computer. So this is just from broadcasting that this is out here and searching for devices, essentially. These are the readings that we're picking up. Again, they're just the baseline levels that you would have with a device like this. So it's pretty comparable, actually, to the Wi-Fi, I would say, in that the readings are pretty similar, regardless of which one is enabled. Let me turn the Bluetooth off now and just leave the NFC enabled. Okay, so that's what I thought. This doesn't really contribute anything much to it. Yeah, and this is actually not something I've seen much before, but I believe NFC would be near field communications. I'll have to double check that. And I'm not entirely sure. It's probably more for embedded things or other peripherals, but we don't really see much of a spike from that. In fact, let me turn it off completely. I don't really notice any difference. So the NFC isn't a huge contributor. It's really the Wi-Fi and the Bluetooth, as you might imagine. So let me turn the Bluetooth back on. Okay, so now it's on. Let me turn the Wi-Fi back on. Okay, so that's on, and we could see that there were a few spikes there as each of those came on. And now this is your baseline wireless communication. Keep in mind that by default, all of these would be on, and you're getting hit with this constantly as you're using the thing, regardless of whether you're actively using the network or not. So let's go back to our YouTube video here and play that. Okay, so now we've got that going, and maybe the surprising thing here is actually you don't notice, you can't tell just by looking at the readings whether or not the YouTube video is playing or not, really. Although this part was buffered here, so let me go to a non-buffered part so that it has to seek that. Okay, so it's loading that now. Actually, that's not going to work because I never reconnected to the wireless network, so let me do that. That would explain why it wasn't working. Okay, so we're connecting now. Okay, so now the video is going. And I'll jump up to this point here. Yep, and let me go and just close the tab. So that would be the interesting thing here, I think, is that you really can't tell if the video is even playing or not, just based on the readings, because the baseline levels of RF radiation on this computer are so high that any actual usage of it is simply almost drops in the bucket, so to speak. It's already that bad to begin with. So I'm going to go ahead now and put this back in airplane mode. So now it's in airplane mode, so Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, all of that junk is turned off. And so we can try to play that YouTube video now. Of course, it's not going to load, but we can come and plug our handy dandy Ethernet adapter, because again, this computer does not have an onboard Ethernet port. So in order to really use this safely, you would need to carry an Ethernet adapter with you, a USB to Ethernet adapter. And then once we do that, the video loads, and we can play it, and we're getting 0 RF because this computer is safely hardwired, so it's going to be faster, it's going to be more secure, and no health impacts. So that is all I have for this little laptop. Well, it's not little, but that's all I have for this laptop here. Just a brief look at where the antenna is on this thing and what the levels look like, just the baseline levels and the usage levels.